You have to be able to write your own name before you can have a library card, Beezus explained. I can write my own name, said Ramona. Oh, Ramona, said Beezus, you can't either. Perhaps she really does know how to write her name, said Miss Greaver, as she took a card out of her desk. Beezus watched doubtfully while Miss Greaver asked Ramona her name and age. Then the librarian asked Ramona what her father's occupation was. When Ramona didn't understand, she asked, What kind of work does your father do? He mows the lawn, said Ramona promptly. The librarian laughed. I mean, how does he earn his living? Somehow, Beezus did not like to have Miss Greaver laugh at her little sister. After all, how could Ramona be expected to know what the father did? He works for Pacific Gas and Electric Company, Beezus told the librarian. Miss Greaver wrote this down on the card and shoved it across the desk to Ramona. Write your name on this line, she directed. Nothing daunted, Ramona grasped the pencil in her fist and began to write. She bore down so hard that the tip snapped off the lead, but she wrote on. When she laid down the pencil, Beezus picked up the card to see what she had written. The line on the card was filled with... That's my name, said Ramona proudly. That's just scribbling, Beezus told her. It is to my name, insisted Ramona, while Miss Greaver quietly dropped the card into the wastebasket. I've watched you write, I know how. Here, Ramona, you can hold my card. Beezus tried to be comforting. You can pretend it's yours. Ramona brightened at this, and Miss Greaver checked out the books on Beezus's card. As soon as they got home, Ramona demanded, Read my new book to me. And so Beezus began. Big Steve was a steam shovel. He was the biggest steam shovel in the whole city. When she finished the book, she had to admit she liked Big Steve better than Scoopy. His only sound effects were tooting and growling. He tooted and growled in big letters on every page, but Steve did not shed tears or want to be a pile driver. He worked hard at being a steam shovel, and by the end of the book, Beezus had learned a lot about steam shovels. Unfortunately, she did not want to learn about steam shovels. Oh well, she guessed she could stand 2 weeks of Big Steve. Read it again, said Ramona enthusiastically. I like Big Steve. He's better than Scoopy. How would you like me to show you how to really write your name? Beezus asked, hoping to divert Roma from steam shovels. Okay, agreed Ramona. Beezus found pencil and paper and wrote Ramona in large, careful letters across the top of the paper. Ramona studied it critically. I don't like it, she said at last. But that's the way your name is spelled, Beezus explained. You didn't make dots and lines, said Ramona. Seizing the pencil, she wrote. But Ramona, you don't understand. Beezus took the pencil and wrote her own name on the paper. You've seen me write Beatrice, which has an I and a T in it. See, like that. You don't have an I or a T in your name, because it isn't spelled that way. Ramona looked skeptical. She grabbed the pencil again and wrote with a flourish. That's my name, because I like it, she announced. I like to make dots and lines. Lying flat on her stomach on the floor, she proceeded to fill the paper with I's and T's. But Ramona, nobody's name is spelled with just... Beezus stopped. What was the use? Trying to explain spelling and writing to Ramona was too complicated. Everything became difficult when Ramona was around. Even an easy thing, like taking a book out of the library. Well, if Ramona was happy thinking her name was spelled with I's and T's, she could go on it right ahead and think it. The next 2 weeks were fairly peaceful. Mother and Father soon tired of tooting and growling, and, like Beezus, they looked forward to the day Big Steve was due at the library. Father even tried to hide the book behind the radio, but Ramona soon found it. Beezus was happy that one part of her plan had worked. Ramona had forgotten the little steam shovel, now that she had a better book. On Ramona's second trip to the library, perhaps Miss Heavens could find a book that would make her forget steam shovels entirely. As for Ramona, she was perfectly happy. She had 3 people to read aloud a book she liked, and she spent much of her time covering sheets with paper I's and T's. Sometimes she wrote in pencil, sometimes she wrote in crayon, and once she wrote in ink until her mother caught her at it. Finally, to the relief of the rest of the family, the day came when Big Steve had to be returned. Come on, Ramona, said Beezus. It's time to go to the library for another book. I have a book, said Ramona, who was lying on her stomach writing her version of her name on a piece of paper with purple crayon. No, it belongs to the library, Beezus explained, glad that for once Ramona couldn't possibly get her own way. It's my book, said Ramona, crossing several T's with a flourish. Beezus is right, dear, observed Mother. Run along and get Big Steve. Ramona looked sulky, but she went into the bedroom. In a few minutes she appeared with Big Steve in her hand and a satisfied expression on her face. It's my book, she announced. I wrote my name in it. Mother looked alarmed. What do you mean, Ramona? Let me see. She took the book and opened it. Every page in the book was covered with enormous purple I's and T's in Ramona's very best handwriting. Mother, cried Beezus, look what she's done, and in crayon so it won't erase. Ramona Quimby, said Mother, you're a very naughty girl. Why did you do a thing like that? It's my book, said Ramona stubbornly. I like it. Mother, what am I going to do? Beezus demanded. It's checked out on my card, and I'm responsible. They won't let me take any more books out of the library, and I won't have anything to read, and it will all be Ramona's fault. She's always spoiling my fun, and it isn't fair. Beezus didn't know what she would do without her library card. She couldn't get along without library books. She just couldn't, that was all. I do not spoil your fun, stormed Ramona. You have all the fun. I can't read, and it isn't fair. Ramona's words ended in a howl as she buried her face in her mother's skirt. I couldn't read when I was your age, and I didn't have someone to read to me all the time, so it is too fair, argued Beezus. You always get your way because you're the youngest. I do not, shouted Ramona. And you don't read all the time. You're mean. I am not mean, Beezus shouted back. Children, cried Mother, stop it, both of you. Ramona, you are a very naughty girl. A loud sniff came from Ramona. And Beezus, her mother continued, the library won't take your card from you. If you get my purse, I'll give you some money to pay for the damage to the book. Take Ramona along with you and explain what happened, and the librarian will tell you how much to pay. This made Beezus feel better. Ramona sulked all the way to the library. But when she got there, Beezus was pleased to see that Miss Evans, the children's librarian, was sitting behind the desk. Miss Evans was the kind of librarian who would understand about little sisters. Hello, Beatrice, said Miss Evans. Is this your sister I've heard so much about? Beezus wondered what Miss Evans had heard about Ramona. Yes, this is Ramona, she said, and went on hesitantly. And Miss Evans, I'm a bad girl, interrupted Ramona, smiling winningly at the librarian. Oh, are you? Said Miss Evans. What did you do? I wrote in a book, said Ramona, not the least ashamed. I wrote in a purple crayon, and it will never, ever erase. Never, never, never. Embarrassed, Beezus handed Miss Evans Big Steve the steam shovel. Mother gave me the money to pay for the damage, she explained. The librarian turned the pages of the book. Well, you didn't miss a page, did you? She finally said to Ramona. No, said Ramona, pleased with herself, and it will never, never... I'm awfully sorry, interrupted Beezus. After this, I'll try to keep our library books where she can't reach them. Miss Evans consulted a file of little cards in the drawer. Since every page in the book was damaged, and the library can no longer use it, I'll have to ask you to pay for the whole book. I'm sorry, but this is the rule. It will cost $2.50. $2.50. What a lot of things that would have bought. Beezus reflected as she pulled 3 folded dollar bills out of her pocket and handed them to the librarian. Miss Evans put the money in a drawer and gave Beezus 50 cents in change. Then Miss Evans took a rubber stamp and stamped something inside the book. By twisting her head around, Beezus could see the word was discarded. There, Miss Evans said, pushing the book across the desk. You have paid for it, so now it's yours. Beezus stared at the librarian. You mean to keep? That's right, answered Miss Evans. Ramona grabbed the book. It's mine! I told you it was mine. Then she turned to Beezus and said triumphantly, You said people didn't buy books at the library, and now you just bought one. Buying a book and paying for damage are not the same thing, Miss Evans pointed out to Ramona. Beezus could see that Ramona didn't care. The book was hers, wasn't it? It was paid for, and she could keep it. And that's not fair, thought Beezus. Ramona shouldn't get her own way when she had been naughty. But Miss Evans, protested Beezus, if she spoils a book, she shouldn't get to keep it. Now every time she finds a book she likes, she will... Beezus didn't go on. She knew very well Ramona would do, but she wasn't going to say it out loud in front of her. I see what you mean. Miss Evans looked thoughtfully. Give me the book, Ramona, she said. Doubtfully, Ramona handed her the book. Ramona, do you have a library card? Miss Evans asked. Ramona shook her head. Then Beezus must have taken the book out on her card, said Miss Evans. So the book belongs to Beezus. Why, of course. Why hadn't she thought of that before? It was her book, not Ramona's. Oh, thank you, said Beezus gratefully, as Miss Evans handed the book to her. She could do anything she wanted with it. For once, Ramona didn't know what to say. She scowled and looked as if she were building up to a tantrum. You've got to read it to me, she said at last. Not unless I feel like it, said Beezus. After all, it's my book, she couldn't resist adding. That's no fair. Ramona looked as if she were to howl. It is too fair, said Beezus calmly, and if you have a tantrum, I won't read to you at all. Suddenly, as if she had decided Beezus meant what she said, Ramona stopped scowling. Okay, she said cheerfully. Beezus watched her carefully for a minute. Yes, she really was being agreeable, thought Beezus with a great feeling of relief. And now that she did not have to read Big Steve unless she wanted to, Beezus felt she would not mind reading it once in a while. Come on, Ramona, she said. Maybe I'll have time to read to you before Father comes home. Okay, said Ramona happily, as she took Beezus's hand. Miss Evans smiled at the girls as they started to leave. Good luck, Beatrice, she said.